Good morning, Louise here from Boost Your Career, and welcome to another Boost Talk. Today I'm in conversation with Lara Kayess, who is a risk management specialist, and she's also someone who firmly believes in the maxim that change is an opportunity. We've had a great conversation about the boost of self-awareness and why self-awareness is such a key to career success and personal growth. We talked about accountability, so personal accountability for our own growth, our own development. And we also talked about the need for women to trust their gut and to stop second guessing. So enjoy the conversation, like, comment, leave me your thoughts, and I'll see you back over on the website, Boost Your Career. Bye for now. Well, good morning everyone. Louise here from Boost Your Career, and welcome to another Boost Talk. Today I am in conversation with Lara Kayess, who is a risk management specialist. Welcome, Lara.
Thank you for having me, Louise. It's lovely to catch up again.
Oh, you are more than welcome. And today our conversation is centered around self-awareness, and we've called it Returning to Self to Reboot. I actually love it. It's a great title. So I know that you are a chartered engineer, that you have studies in sustainability and ecologically sustainable development, which is quite a mouthful, I must say. And I wondered if you would mind giving us a quick insight into what that means in terms of what are the passions that have led your professional career?
Yeah, absolutely. So started out as a farmer's daughter and loved being outdoors, but knew that I needed to do something with my mind as well. So problem solving with maths and chemistry for me was really important. So finding a career in engineering seemed to fit the bill. So I loved being indoors and outdoors, and I loved solving problems and making stuff. So that really worked for me. And then as that's evolved, I've sort of found this passion in project management for a while, in terms of seeing a project from an idea right through to it being developed on the ground. And then as that all worked through, this kind of importance around risk and risk management and balancing the excitements and opportunities with the potential downsides, the pros and cons. So yeah, and particularly around process safety focus at the moment. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far. I've been really blessed.
It has been a major journey, and you're no stranger to working solo, working in teams, working in offices, and then putting on hard hats and steel cap boots. So I think you've done it all.
I love variety.
And what you've underscored there is you also have well-developed, I'm going to say, teaming skills, in that forming relationships is something that is fairly important to you and something that you do really well. And I think I'm highlighting that because I think when people hear project management, risk management, sustainability, they start to think about individuals, but there is a human element that needs to be entertained as well.
Absolutely. And I think that talks to understanding yourself as well, and understanding what your strengths are. So yeah.
What a beautiful segue. I didn't pay you for that, so that's fantastic. But today we're talking about self-awareness, and how self-awareness impacts our growth, our development. And I suppose for a little bit of context for people listening, Lara and I met up over a coffee a few months ago now, actually, and you piqued my interest with something that you said. Because I talk about in Boost Your Career holding agency with 4 things: with self, with voice, with confidence, and with future. And I was talking about those agencies with Lara, and you expressed to me how that can never be a linear experience, that it always needs to be a loop. And it can't be a one-off career, because understanding yourself, that whole self-awareness, is something we should and we need to return to throughout our careers. So I'd love you to explain to us what you were thinking when you said that, because it is a very interesting way to look at this, and perhaps a bit about how it's played out for you in your career.
Yeah, okay. So sustainability and being a farmer, you know about the seasons, and the one thing you know is change is constant. And so every time something changes it's an opportunity to learn a little bit more about yourself, take another layer off that onion, so to speak, but also to stop and reflect and think about, well, who do I want to be given the situation I've been put in now? So it's yeah, change is always going to happen, and whether you choose to dive in it consciously or unconsciously is really your own choice. So that's kind of the philosophy behind my thinking, in terms of you've got to stop and look at where you are to work out where you're going to grow next. And it may be a season of withering for a little bit and then growing again. But in that, how's that played out in my career? So, early in my career, I just wanted to get outside. I just wanted to have experiences and develop as an engineer. And then I started to understand that that's great. I can travel overseas and I can do FIFO, like fly in, fly out, and I can immerse myself in my career experiences and give myself time and money to travel and have other experiences as well. But then a new season comes along and you've got to think about, okay, well, I'm not single anymore. I've got people that are that I'm responsible for or are depending on me. And so how do I want to be then, and what's going to be important to me then, and what else am I curious about? So you change the paradigms around what's important, and you might move to an office job, and then you might another opportunity comes up and you go, oh, I could either dive in and take that opportunity and find the people I need to make a positive change here, or I can step back and go, well, that's not the space I want to be in. So for me, it's about making conscious decisions, and taking that time to reflect and understand, well, what are my strengths? What can I bring to this situation? Versus, what am I not in a space to be able to give right now? So unless you do that consciously, you kind of end up following everyone else's dreams rather than doing what makes you happy and brings you joy and fulfillment.
Oh, well said. Some fabulous analogies in there. I love the seasons, and I actually didn't know that you were a farmer's daughter, so I am very excited about that. And I'm hearing how that's impacted some of the choices that you've made. The second thing that you said that absolutely I agree with is that change is opportunity. The interesting thing for me is that not everyone sees that. So I'm wondering if, chicken and egg, were you someone who always saw opportunity and change, or was that something that gradually developed? And can you remember when you started making connections between change and opportunity? Is there
Yeah, I
something?
think I was blessed in my early career that I had some really good sponsors and mentors who would be making those changes and opportunities for me. But now that I'm a mum, I've got to be a lot more responsible for balancing out those opportunities for myself and for my family. So I think I became really aware of it when I had my children were 2, and the office, or the company I worked for, closed its local office, and I had to make a really big choice around, well, what am I going to do now? Who am I going to be now? What's important to me now? And so that was probably the first big one that came along, in terms of, no, I'm going to step away from being the engineer that I'd been and look at, well, what could I do that's new and diverse? What can I do that matches more in with my family life? How am I going to be more assertive around, well, actually, this is going to be part-time, and no, I'm not going to travel, and I'm not going to take on a stretch role and a stressful role right now. But for me personally, everyone needs to make that decision for themselves. Yeah, so that was probably the first time. And then the second time was, sometimes you get a gut feeling, and maybe I'd listen to that a little bit more now. That I could see something in a job or a position I was in, and it wasn't my direct role, but it was something that I saw that was going to add more value to the business than what I was doing in my primary role. And so, like you said, building the relationships, just unpacking that a little bit more, and discovering whether there was something there that needed to be worked on, or whether it was just my imagination, and then having that follow through and passion to go, no, that's absolutely something I don't know how to fix, but I know it's a problem that I want to work on. So how do I make that happen? And who do I need to work with to make that happen? Because I guess as engineers, we know no one does it on their own. We all have to be part of a team and part of a community.
Support's fairly important for
Yeah.
development. There's also something in there that I would like to highlight as a strength of yours, and that is the accountability piece. I'm in a review circle conversation with a group of women who are moving through the agencies of Boost Your Career, and one of the points that I've been making is that we are each accountable for our own development. That I can't tell you what to do. It's something that we need to discover ourselves, and that is what accountable development is. So your attitude around that is that change is an opportunity, not change is horrible, and I'm just going to go down this pathway. It's every time something's thrown up for me, it's, wow, what does this mean? How can I use this to my advantage? And for me, that is personal accountability around development. So I wanted to applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you.
I think a lot of our strengths, we don't realize they're strengths. They're just things that we do.
Yes.
So I'd like to say that. The other thing I'd say is that you talked about gut feeling. And for me, women often second guess, and women are innately in tune with where they're at and how they feel and how a situation feels. So I think to be intentional around not second guessing is probably another piece of applause for you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that's my pleasure. I like to, because I'm hearing what you're saying, and my brain goes, that comes from another place. And I'm not
Yeah.
sure that as women we always recognise the place of strength that comes from.
Yeah, and we have to unpack a whole lot of paradigms to get to that point, right?
We sure
Around
do.
pleasing others and this whole like, I'm just, I'm supposed to sit and be demure and be a princess, and someone will come along and rescue me.
Yeah.
Because I don't really actually need to make any serious decisions. I've just got to, be in a space where other people can help me.
Absolutely.
And that's really hard. And you don't want to get it wrong either. We're trained in the Western society to be all about, you get it right the first time, you never make mistakes. And so as women, we don't want to make a choice sometimes because we don't want to get it wrong. But I think I've started to understand that life's messy and understand that I will get it wrong, and just go with that a little bit more, and even being aware that I'm in a space where I'm not giving it a go is important sometimes as well, when you kind of go like, oh, I'm just sitting on the fence, I'm not really sure.
Which is that seasons part that you mentioned, and sometimes withering is a season. I love that. That will stay with me. What I'm hearing though, the thread throughout this is that self-awareness is a lifelong process. And I'd love to unpack that a bit more. I talk about in Boost Your Career internal self-awareness and external self-awareness, where internal is about how well I know myself, and external is how well I understand how others see me. And I believe the outcome of all of that is heightened awareness. It's going to impact my productivity, my development, my reputation. And I even go so far as to say that it can impact my job satisfaction. So I'm wondering what's your experience with self-awareness and how you've engaged people around you in that.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess to start off, I completely agree with that. I think your self-awareness in terms of the longer term or medium term, which we are just talking about before in terms of sort of big career direction changes, but equally your self-awareness about moment to moment and that presence. Like, am I reacting to this situation, or am I responding to this situation? And therefore that comes into the third part of the puzzle is, so how is the other person seeing me? So am I being seen as someone who's a bit, I don't want to say like up and down, like unable to pick, is she going to be like snappy at me, or is she going to be calm? Or
there's something about consistency. Consistency.
Consistently, or am I going to be someone who they know I'm going to turn up like this, and I'm going to be annoyingly positive and annoyingly motivating? But you can choose that moment to moment. And then the third bit of the puzzle, which for me has been the scariest, is that feedback of, so how is someone else seeing me when I'm behaving like that? And it definitely is important in work, because if you can understand who you are and articulate what your strengths are and articulate what your limitations are, then you can have a really constructive conversation with another person saying, I'm really good at this, but I really am not very good at this. So how do we, leverage that strength and leverage someone else's strength to cover off my weaknesses, and then have successes as a group or as a team. So and equally the feedback where you're shocked, where you're like, I was stressed about something else, but I was snappy at that person, and they've taken it as me being unhappy with their work, and being able to then correct that and go back and have that, really constructive conversation and say, hey, this is how I was feeling at the time. This, this was right about the work, this was wrong about the work, and let's move forward. So, and you're hearing this whole relationship, strength of mine in terms of, until I understand myself, I really can't communicate well with someone else to get the best out of both of us.
Wow, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there about personal accountability, which is close to my heart. I think we gloss over accountability a lot, as parents, as teachers, as friends. I think we support people without stressing accountability. And what you speak from is a very solid core of being accountable for self, and I think that's a really valuable lesson for all of us. You also talked about reactions and responding. So you're talking about the impact that we have on people. I'm stimulus response theory for me. Viktor Frankl says that between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. And in that space, we can choose our response. And it's that response that holds our growth, it holds our freedom, it holds our future. To me, that's crucial for this conversation, because the more I understand myself, the more I'm able to take that breath, to be present.
And I think the other part of that, as you're talking, is around, for me, it's about being authentic. So if I can be myself, and I'll get it wrong sometimes, and there'll be times where I react and I go back, oh, I wish I didn't react. But overall, if I'm genuinely being able to come from a place of authenticity, then I'm not wasting all that energy and churn on, being what someone else wants me to be, or pretending to be some version of myself that I think other people want me to be. So maybe that's a selfish reason for being self-aware. I just want to use the minimal amount of energy possible and get the best outcome possible.
That seems pretty clever for a woman who's as busy as you are on the work and home front. So I don't know, I think streamlining all of that's very clever. I also think there's something in there about how we take the time to reflect, to take that breath, to be on the balcony, to reflect, and then go back. So that authenticity isn't about getting it right all the time. It's more about recognizing when we get it wrong, and then again taking accountability for that and revisiting. But that's what development is. That's what growth is.
It's normal development. There's not this imaginary space where each time you do something you get it 100% right the first time. Like that's a myth. That doesn't exist.
It doesn't, does it? No. It doesn't exist for anyone. And I think perhaps we're slightly not dishonest, but we're withholding a lot in the workplace when we're having conversations around this, because we're so fixated on that image. That we forget where our authenticity lies and how powerful that authenticity can be. And in fact, I remembered reading something, one of your philosophies is authentic style and genuine desire to understand and create long-lasting collaborative relationships. You can't do that unless you take that breath, unless you're reflective. And if it goes back to our original conversation, unless you put all of this on a loop and are willing to put yourself out there and you said go back. I don't think you go back. It's moving forward in a different realm.
Yes, the new you. Yeah, the
Yeah,
next layer of the Russian doll or the onion. Yeah,
exactly. Staying the same is a little bit scary when you think about it like that, isn't it?
It's almost impossible. It's yeah.
I don't know. I know a lot of people who do that.
Well, maybe. Well, if nothing else, my hair gets longer and my
That's
skin
right.
gets older. So
There you go. A lot of this though is about, for me, is I think about self-acceptance. So accepting who you are with compassion and kindness, and using that as a platform for growth, to make that conscious choice to grow, to develop. I wondered, what's your experience with that side of it, the self-acceptance, and
yeah.
what sort of tips do you have for people around this?
I guess for me, this self-acceptance is a very personal thing. So I guess I can give
Hugely
some
personal.
things that have worked for me around the self-acceptance, but
Thank you.
it is a hard thing. It's not something that you just go, oh yep, I'm going to self-accept and here we go, we're off on the next bit of the puzzle. It takes time. It takes time. For me, understanding. So the first tip I'd say is understand a little bit more about how your brain works and those kind of different parts of the brain. So that fight and flight or lizard brain or reactive brain versus your logical brain and your slower thinking, calmer brain, which also has some gremlins in it, which you need to work through as well. So first, I guess, get a bit more knowledge and understand the brain a little bit more. I found it easier to accept myself, to know that I've got, there's more than one person driving the bus up there, and I need to understand that a little bit more. Second thing for me was really about figuring out what my strengths were, and even if some people might view it as a bit of a negative, there's always a superpower aspect to it. You've just got to think about that. Like, trying to think of an example. So, turning up extremely enthusiastic can be a downside in some environments.
It can put a lot of people off, yeah.
Correct, but it's a superpower, and you've got to understand when to use that superpower and when not to use that superpower. So that's
harnessing
the
our
second tip, is
superpower.
to figure out what your strengths are, and then that allows you to be more accepting of the things that are your weaknesses. Like, I am no good at detailed engineering. I'm never going to be a detailed design engineer, and even though that saddens me, it's also just who I am. So just roll with it. And the third one, I think, is find support, like yourself, Louise, or friends that you can talk to, professionals that you can talk to go through this process of, to have that kind of other knowledge coming into the situation, or that impartial view of yourself. Sometimes you can stew on stuff that you could just talk out quite quickly and move forward. And I think the fourth one for me is what you said before around balcony time. Like, it's really easy to get focused on the delivery and the task and ticking things off the list, and it's really hard to stop and navel gaze. It's it forces you to have to look at yourself, and sometimes that's uncomfortable. So you've got to be willing to do the meditation or do the journaling or take that balcony time by yourself or with a buddy to unpack this. It'll take time as you go through your journey. And I'm still a junior on my journey. I've still got lots of things to unpack and learn about myself and have aha moments about still. So yeah.
And yet you're making the conscious choice at every chance.
Well, okay, so I'll just stop you there. 30% of the time I get this right, and 70% I get this wrong. And I've had a professional person tell me that is fine. That is okay.
Perfectly fine.
Keep aiming for the 30% and move forward with that. Even if you get 1% a day, you're moving forward. So
that's the beauty of conscious choice, that it's a learning process. And if I can wrap this, it comes back to your language around, this is not linear, this is a loop. And the loop is our life. consciously making choices to grow, to develop, to change, creating those balcony moments so we can reflect and take that breath. All of this is important for the life journey.
Yes.
Well
Yes.
said, you.
Thank you.
Oh, Lara Kayess, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm hoping you'll come back at some point.
Oh, twist my arm, Louise. I love hanging out with you. So
Thank you.
if I can add any value or help, then please feel free.
Excellent. Well, I would love to have you come back at some point, but I wish you every success with your journey.
Thank you so
and
much.
thanks for joining us on Boost Talk today.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello, Louise Phelan here, and you've been listening to yet another Boost Talk, and I know you loved it. These women are being so generous with their time and their experience and their expertise, and it's great to have their perspective on their career enhancement strategies for women in this post-pandemic hybrid workplace that we find ourselves in. So for more information, head on over to our website, boostyourcareer.com.au, and I'll see you there.